We will now play taps, followed by remembrances. Please remain standing until taps have finished. Please be seated. I first call upon Mr. Fulrath.
Good afternoon. My name is Adam Fulrath, and Logan was my father. It feels right to be here with Squadron 8 today. For more than 30 years, this was one of his places. As secretary and judge advocate, he kept the records, upheld the traditions, and helped make sure the history of Squadron 8 was preserved for all those who would come after. My father was a quiet man, not shy, just measured. He chose his words carefully. If you were spending time with him, you learned to lean in a little. But there was one reliable exception to that quietness, and it's why we're all here today. Mention Squadron A, and his eyes lit up. He found a new gear. This place mattered to him deeply. Squadron A has been boutin en avant, charging forward since 1889. My father truly believed in that spirit. His decades of legal work, guiding people through some of the hardest moments of their lives, his service to the organizations he cared about, and above all, the way he showed up for the people that he loved. He met my mother, Betty, in Santa Monica, and from that moment, she was everything to him. They were, in the truest sense, soulmates. And in a wonderful happenstance, they passed away on the same day, 6 years apart. As a son, he had a very challenging relationship with his father. And as a father, he was determined to do better. He was kind, he was loving, and he was always present. When I was a child, he engaged with what mattered most to me. And as an adult, I did all I could to make sure that he was proud of me. We loved the time we spent together. His nickname for me was Precious. He showed me truly everything it meant to be a loving and present father to my 3 children. And I take all of that with me every day with them. Logan was 87 years old. That's 6 decades of legal practice, a lifetime of service, and a family he adored. It was a life well executed, which is my trust and estates reference for him. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here, to remembering him. He would have been deeply moved, and being my dad, he would have expressed it very, very quietly. Boutin en avant, Dad.
And Mr. Raff.
Reverend Montgomery, Michael Witter, Julia Nelson, Vinny Katinas, and the Knickerbocker Grays. I was a Gray for 4 years in the early 60s, so it's great to see the gray uniform again, and Colonel. Choir sounds amazing, and the organ also. Thank you for coming to the Squadron A Memorial Service. I was asked to say a few words for Harriet Hipsch, so this is only about a page long. I had known Harriet since I was a teenager, and she worked with my dad, Herbert Raff, when he was Squadron A's president and chairman. She was also the club's executive secretary for about 50 years, which is remarkable. Harriet was more like an aunt to me. She adored my dad, knew my sisters, and was always interested in whatever I was doing for work. She was passionate about Squadron A, its members, and history. I wonder if the club would be here if it hadn't been for her service. Fortunately, we have Julia Nelson now, and who has filled Harriet's iconic shoes. Thank you, Julia. Vinnie and I visited Harriet multiple times at her nursing home in Long Island, which was near her son's family's home. She was very happy to see us and didn't stop talking until we left. Vinnie asked if she had found a new boyfriend yet. She laughed. In closing, I would like to say that Harriet served Squadron A for half of her life. She was 103 when she passed. She loved Squadron A, and I loved her. Her dedication and caring nature are very rare commodities these days. Boutte and Avant, God bless Harriet Hipsch, and God bless Squadron A.
Mr. Duddy.
James Pratt Sinclair. He's going to be called Jimmy for the rest of this talk. I would want to focus on a few points at the end of his life. And I want to read a line from his obituary. And it says, his intellect, kindness, and passion, this is very emotional, allowed him to live life to the fullest, to the very end. Jimmy was a strong, tough man, and he faced a lot of hardship and adversity during his lifetime, and a lot of great times. And you would never know that he faced any of these issues because of his joie de vivre and his gentlemanliness and his courtliness. His wife passed away about 6 years ago, and my wife and I were both concerned whether Jimmy was going to be okay. We would check in on him, we would go out with him, and there was a slowdown, but within no time at all, he was out most nights, often with ladies, and if he wasn't out with ladies, he was at the Union Club having drinks with his friends in the East Room, probably including our pastor. His generosity was boundless. He got tickets to everything for all of his friends, handed them out to our friends, food, best wine. He lived a good life, and he soldiered on. He was my daughter's godfather, and they would go out every couple of months. He would take her to Caravaggio, where he delighted in the fact that the coat check girls were always whispering when he kept showing up with this recurring date with this young woman. He never set the record straight. One night, I asked my daughter to pick up the tab and that I would pay for it. And when she told me how much it was about 3 times what I expected. Her reply was, Uncle Jimmy was giving her wine lessons. The second hardship, which we thought was a very tough one. A couple of years ago on Martha's Vineyard, he nearly died. And we thought he was gone or did not have much long to live. It was from a complication from cancer, but he seemed to be handling it quite well. We offered to take him lunch after 6 weeks of physical rehabilitation, and we thought we'd have a nice quiet lunch at his home, and perhaps while he was convalescing. He was having none of it. He wanted to go to a restaurant with all his friends for lunch, so we arranged it somewhat skeptically, and we arrived and he was sitting there, and he was frail and ashen, but he stood up to greet us with his usual smile, the mischievous twinkle in his eye, and a sidecar. In the meantime, while he was not wasting time while he was in the hospital. He had made plans to go to various theater events. He had rebooked the place in Martha's Vineyard, Was in the process of trying to book another trip to Europe with his sister, and he lived much longer than we expected. The last time we saw him was in January. He had given us a call in December and told us that he had 4 months to live, and he delivered the news with not with woe or despair, but he delivered it in the spirit of, let's live it up, time is limited. We saw Jimmy a few more times, and the last time we saw him, my wife had called to arrange to bring dinner to his house, have his family, our family, and a couple of very close mutual friends for a quiet dinner. Well, Jimmy was not to settle for something nice and quiet, and he started planning and inviting other people. We'll get a chef and a bartender and a bottle washer, and we'll have a big blowout. Fortunately, his sons intervened and said, maybe we just better go back to the original plan. And it was smart. We showed up about 5 o'clock, and he was quite tired. And by the time we left at around 9, he had already gone to bed. Jimmy lived a full life to the very end, and he pushed forward. And addressing the motto, "Butte en avant," it technically refers to a military charge command. However, the literal motto, the literal translation is to push forward. And Jimmy pushed forward. In spite of these various adversities, he pushed forward and kept life a joy and a delight. He did it without fatigue, without self-pity, and with a happy morale and a gracious spirit. We're all going to be beset by obstacles and hardships in our lives. And when I address mine, I'm going to recall Jimmy's spirit and how he handled it, and remember Butte en avant.